The morning light was soft and pale when the world of Aram Kadir collapsed. He stood beside the shattered remains of his rickshaw, its metal frame twisted like a wounded animal on the roadside. But the real destruction wasn't the machine, it was the trembling hand of his 8-year-old daughter, Inaya, pressed to her chest as she struggled to breathe. Her inhaler had fallen somewhere during the accident. The small wheezing sound escaping her lips was frantic, sharp, and terrifying. Aram felt something cold and merciless coil around his heart as panic stormed into him with brutal force. He remembered the doctor's warning, a severe asthma attack could steal his daughter away in minutes. If you are part of this ripple of love, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to support hope, compassion, and second chances. The road smelled of dust and engine fumes. A few people looked on but none stepped forward to help. Aram's hands shook as he tried to lift the wrecked rickshaw, hoping the inhaler had fallen underneath, but its weight mocked him. Inaya's breathing grew harsher. His vision blurred. He felt the old familiar shame rise in him, the shame of failing as a father, of never being enough, of a life that had cornered him again and again with no mercy. He scooped Inaya into his arms and started running toward the nearest clinic, feet slamming against the hot pavement. She clung to his shirt, eyes wide with fear, her tiny body trembling. The world around him became a swirl of daylight, honking cars, and helpless prayers. He had lost too much already, his wife to illness, his dignity to poverty, his freedom to responsibilities heavier than any man should bear. He couldn't lose Inaya too. When they finally reached the clinic, the nurse glanced at his sweat-soaked clothes and shook her head with rehearsed indifference. No card, no payment, no treatment. Aram begged, voice breaking, but rules were rules. The rejection sliced through him with precision, cold, clean, cruel. As he pleaded, helplessness inflated inside him like a suffocating balloon. Then, as Inaya's breathing dulled into faint gasps, a wheelchair rolled into the hallway. The woman sitting in it was dressed in elegant white, her black hair falling past her shoulders, her face striking and calm but shadowed by exhaustion. Safiya Halim, CEO of Halim International, a woman with wealth, power, influence, and a pair of legs that had refused to obey her for the past 3 years. Rumor said she no longer attended board meetings in person, that she rarely spoke to the press, that her condition had broken her spirit. But no rumor had ever spoken of the gentleness with which she looked at Aram and his daughter at that moment, as though seeing an old wound rise again. She instructed the nurse with a quiet authority that allowed no delay, and within seconds Inaya was taken inside. Aram watched her disappear behind doors, knees nearly buckling from relief and shock. He didn't know who Safiya was except that she didn't belong to his world, hers was polished, high-rise, untouchable. Yet she waited beside him silently, her breathing steady, her expression unreadable. While the doctor treated Inaya, Aram studied the gleaming wheels of the woman's chair and felt the unsettling weight of being rescued by someone he could never repay. Gratitude mixed with discomfort. He whispered a thank you, but Safiya only lowered her gaze as though the words hurt her more than they soothed. What Aram didn't know was that she recognized him. Not from a corporate world of contracts and skyscrapers, but from a dusty street he had forgotten years ago. A street where a lonely, heartbroken woman used to sit on her balcony and watch the young rickshaw driver who gave away free rides to children who couldn't pay. A man who laughed easily despite hardship, who talked to his daughter with a tenderness she had longed for her entire life. A man she had admired quietly, secretly, from a world away. But fate had broken both their lives in ways neither could control. When Inaya stabilized, the doctor explained that her attacks would worsen without proper medication and that she needed long-term treatment. Aram felt the words like a slow poison dripping into his veins. He had barely enough income to feed her. Medicine was far beyond reach. He stood in the hallway, face drained of all color, feeling the world tilt. He had fought too hard for too long, and his strength was finally crumbling. Safiya watched him carefully, her fingers curling on the fabric of her shawl as if holding on to courage. She knew what she was about to do would change everything. Later that week, Aram received a phone call that sounded like a riddle. He was summoned to Halim International headquarters. Wearing his only semi-clean shirt, he arrived, overwhelmed by marble floors, glass walls, and a kind of quiet wealth he had never touched. He met Sophia in her office, sunlight pouring in through floor-to-ceiling windows, outlining her form like a portrait carved by light. Her offer was astonishing. Marry her, and in return, her company would sponsor Inaya's full treatment, education, and future. She needed a spouse to silence board members demanding she step down for being too weak to lead. A marriage would stabilize her public image, protect her position, and buy her time to regain her strength. Aram felt as though someone had lifted him and placed him in another universe. The proposal was impossible, surreal, dangerous. He didn't want to chain his broken life to someone already burdened by pain. He feared people's judgment. He feared not being good enough. He feared hurting her unknowingly. But the image of Inaya gasping for breath stabbed through all hesitation. Desperation softened pride. After hours of silent war inside him, he agreed. There.